What if a river's importance had little to do with industry or power, and more to do with how people experience the land itself? Not as a route for goods, but as a setting for culture. Because along the Avon, Britain was not just built, it was imagined. Welcome to the making of Britain. The name Avon comes from an old Brythonic word simply meaning river, and across Britain there are several rivers that carry it. But when most people refer to the Avon in a cultural sense, they're thinking of the River Avon that flows through the Midlands, passing through Warwickshire before joining the Severn. This river does not dominate the landscape. It moves gently, winding through fields, meadows and small settlements. Its significance lies not in scale or power, but in the kind of landscape it creates, one that has come to represent a particular idea of England. Unlike rivers associated with heavy industry, the Avon flows through a region that remained largely agricultural well into the modern period. The land around it is fertile, suited to farming, and shaped by long established patterns of cultivation. Fields are enclosed, hedgerows define boundaries, and villages sit within a landscape that appears stable. This stability matters. It creates a sense of continuity, where change is gradual rather than abrupt. The river supports this environment, providing water, shaping the terrain, and contributing to a landscape that feels settled and enduring. As you're still walking with me, can I be cheeky and ask if you'd like to drop me a like? It helps YouTube show this video to more people who might enjoy it. Thank you. Along the Avon lies Stratford-upon-Avon, a town whose identity is closely tied to one individual, William Shakespeare. The presence of the river is not incidental. It forms part of the setting in which Shakespeare lived and worked, and later, part of how his legacy has been presented. Visitors to Stratford encounter not just buildings and texts, but a landscape that appears to reflect the world of its plays. The river becomes part of that experience, a physical element that reinforces cultural memory. It's not just where things happened, it's part of how they are remembered. By the 18th and 19th centuries, attitudes towards the landscape began to shift. As industrialisation transformed other parts of Britain, places like the Avon Valley came to be valued in a different way. They were seen as spaces of leisure, where people could experience a form of countryside that contrasted with urban and industrial environments. Boating on the river, walking along its banks, and visiting towns like Stratford became part of a growing culture of leisure. The river was no longer just a resource, it was an experience. The Avon played a role in the development of tourism in Britain. Visitors were drawn to the landscape not for what it produced, but for how it appeared. Guidebooks, illustrations and later photographs presented the river and its surroundings as representative of an idealised countryside. This representation was selective. It emphasised harmony, continuity and beauty, often overlooking the complexities of rural life. But it was influential. The Avon became part of a broader image of Britain, one that balanced the realities of industrial growth with a sense of cultural heritage. At this point, it's worth considering how landscapes are understood. When a place becomes associated with culture and leisure, does that change what it is or simply how it's seen? Is the Avon important because of what happened along it or because of how it has been interpreted over time? Share your thoughts in the comments because the difference between those two ideas shapes how history is remembered. The landscape along the Avon is not untouched. It has been shaped by centuries of human activity, farming, settlement and land management. The appearance of naturalness is in many ways constructed. Fields are organised, riverbanks maintained, and the flow of the river itself sometimes controlled. This reflects a broader pattern in Britain, where landscapes that appear traditional are often the result of long-term management. The Avon is part of this pattern. It represents not wilderness, but a carefully sustained environment. If you subscribe, there's a whole back catalogue of videos like this for you to enjoy. While Stratford-upon-Avon is the most prominent cultural site along the river, it's not the only one. The Avon connects a series of towns and villages, each contributing to the character of the region. Places like Evesham and Tewkesbury reflect a history of agriculture, trade, and local identity. The river links these places, creating a shared landscape that extends beyond any single location. Culture in this context is not confined to one figure or one town. It emerges from the interaction between people and place across the region. The 20th century brought changes to the Avon, as it did elsewhere in Britain, but these changes were less dramatic than in heavily industrial regions. Mechanisation altered agriculture, tourism expanded, and conservation efforts began to shape how the landscape was managed. The river remained central, but its role continued to evolve. It became part of environmental planning, recreational use, and heritage preservation. The continuity of landscape was maintained even as its functions shifted. Today, the Avon is often seen as a symbol of a particular version of Britain, rural, historic, and culturally rich. It supports tourism, recreation, and environmental initiatives. Its significance lies not in what it produces or transports, but in what it represents. The river has become part of a national image, one that values landscape as heritage. This does not replace its earlier roles, but it reframes them, placing emphasis on experience and meaning rather than production. If the Avon shows how a river can shape not industry or empire but culture and identity, what does that suggest about the way its landscapes influence how a country understands itself? Are places important because of what happens there, or because of what they come to represent? Because in the case of the Avon, the answer is not fixed. It flows much like the river itself, between history and interpretation. YouTube has chosen this video especially for you because you've watched this. Watch it next. YouTube and I think you'll enjoy it. If you ding the bell, you'll be notified when episodes are published, so you don't miss any. So thanks for walking a little farther down the road to Britain with me. Bye.